Another method of solving quadratic equation is called quadratic formula. So what is a quadratic formula? This is a theorem. It's stated as consider quadratic equation written in standard form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where leading coefficient a is not equal to 0. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, we call b squared minus 4ac a discriminant. Okay, so b squared minus 4ac, we give a specific name called a discriminant. So if discriminant is a negative number, and then we say this equation has no real solution. If discriminant greater than or equal to 0, which is a non-negative number, and then we say the equation has real number solutions. Okay, so here it could be 1 or could be 2, right? It has real number solutions and is given by the quadratic formula. So the solution can be solved by x equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then the long fraction line, the whole thing divided by 2 times a. Okay, this is called a quadratic formula. So you need to memorize this formula in order to use quadratic formula method to solve quadratic equations. All right, so let's look at some example. Oh, the next slide actually is talk about discriminant. Okay, how to use the value of discriminant to determine the type of solution. What kind of solution we're going to get for a particular quadratic equation. So once quadratic equation is given you, and then we can always write in standard form, right? And then we can always identify the coefficient A, coefficient B, coefficient C. Okay, be careful, A, B, C, they are just numerical values. Okay, they don't contain variable. Okay, they're only constant. And then we can evaluate b squared minus 4ac, and then based on the value of discriminant, and then we can determine what kind of solution we're going to get. So when discriminant is a positive number, and then we say quadratic equation has 2 unequal real number solutions. Okay, the key is these 2 solutions, they're unequal. Okay, they're not the same value. But if discriminant equals 0, and then we have 2 equal real number solutions, so it's called a repeated solution, is also have another name called a double roots. Okay, quadratic equation has 2 solutions, but they just identical. They're same values, so we call it double root. When discriminant is a value less than 0, negative value, and then we say there's no real number solution. Okay, we won't say no solution. We only say the solution is not a real number. Okay, when we learn next section, we're going to, learn a little bit more about this. When discriminant less than 0, we do have a solution. The only thing, those solutions, they're complex numbers. They're not real numbers anymore. All right, and then let's try some example. Solving this quadratic equation using quadratic formula. Okay, use quadratic formula to find a real solution, if any. All right, so this quadratic equation is already given us in standard form. Okay, so we don't have to rewrite. And then if that is the case, first step, what we need to do, we need to identify this coefficient A, B, and C. What are those values are, right? So remember, A, B, C, they're just numerical values of each variable term. Okay, so A equals 3, B equals -5. Okay, not a -5x, just -5, only the constant. And then c equals positive 1. Right? And then second step, we need to evaluate discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, we want to see this value is positive number, or is a 0, or is a negative number. Okay, so let's see. Plug in. Okay, b, we know b is negative 5. So negative 5 squared minus 4 times a equals 3, times c equals 1. So that will give us negative 5 squared, that's positive 25, right? Any number, when squaring it, is always positive. And then minus 4 times 3 times 1, that's 12, right? So that's given us positive 13. So what this number telling us, based on what you already learned so far? So earlier, is talk about when the value of discriminant is a positive number. We should get what? We should have two unequal real number solution, right? So based on this value of discriminant, we know we should have two real number solution. All right, and then we plug into the quadratic formula, right? Number 3, quadratic formula. X equals, what happens to the pen? Negative b plus minus the discriminant, square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 times a. And then we just plug in those numbers. Negative b, that's negative of negative 5. Okay, I just write actual step. So you see negative of negative 5 actually is a positive 5. Plus or minus square root of 13, we already evaluate discriminant, so we can use it directly. Divided by 2 times a equals 3. So that's giving us 5 plus minus square root of 13 over 2 times 3. We simplify that 6. So we have two solutions, okay, if we write into set notation. One is 5 plus square root of 13 over 6. The other one is 5 minus square root of 13 over 6. So this simple plus minus just indicate the two solutions. One use plus sign, one use minus sign. Okay, so write it out. That's how we, put the solution of this quadratic equation into a set notation. All right, so let's try another one. This time quadratic equation given us not in standard form. So first step, we need to rewrite this equation into standard form. So how we do it? Subtract 4x on both sides, right? And write in the descending order. So that's 3x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. This is the standard form. After you write into standard form, and then we can identify the three coefficients, right? Find the a, b, c value. Identify. So a equals what? 3, right? So a equals 3. B, what's the b value? Can you try? B equals negative 4. C is a constant term, which is positive 2. C equals 2. So third step, we evaluate discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So we can just plug it in, right? B squared, I put in here b squared minus 4ac equals what? Negative 4 need to be squared. That's b squared minus 4 times 3 times 2. That's given us 16 minus 4 times 3 times 2. That's 24, right? So that's given us negative 8. Because discriminant is a value less than 0, negative value. So you don't need to plug in this into quadratic formula. You can give the answer directly. Equation has no real number solution. Okay? Equation has no real number solution. Why? Because discriminant less than 0. Okay, in this case, you cannot plug in into quadratic formula, okay, because no real number solution. All right, let's try another one. This time, the equation given us, you first glance it doesn't seem to be a quadratic equation, isn't it? So what can we do? Remember, we learned earlier, whenever we see the denominator, we always want to get rid of it, right? So same idea, we want to get rid of all the denominators and see what kind of equation we will get. So how to find the least common denominator? We need to find the LCD for x and x squared, right? Least common denominator is x squared. So we both sides of the equation multiply by x squared. Right hand side, 0 multiply anything is still 0, so we don't need to worry about that. Left hand side, every term we need to multiply by x squared, right? So we have 9x squared, and the second term x squared, x cancel one x out, so plus 3x. And then third term x squared cancel out, minus 2. So after both sides of the equation multiply by x squared, and then we do get a quadratic equation. However, don't forget, right, when we both sides multiply by expression, we have to make sure what? X squared cannot be 0, right? That's the restriction. Don't forget about that. Otherwise, the equation will no longer equivalent anymore. Under x squared not equal to 0, we both sides of equation multiply by x squared, and then the new equation we got here is still equivalent as the previous one. So now we got a quadratic equation. We can identify the coefficient a, b, and c, right? A is 9, numerical value of x second power. B equals 3, c equals negative 2. And then we can evaluate discriminant b squared minus 4ac. Let's see what's the value going to be. So that's 3 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 2. Right? So here be careful, the sign change negative, negative. So the second term, it will be a positive number. So that's 9 plus, right? Minus become a positive number. 4 times 9, 36. 36 times 9, 72. So that's given us 81. Is that right? Everybody still with me? Now we can plug in quadratic formula. X equals negative b, I just plug in directly, okay, negative 3, plus minus square root of discriminant. We already know discriminant equals 81, divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 9. And then we further simplify. That's negative 3 plus minus square root of 81, that's 9. And then divided by 2 times 9, that's 18, right? So now it's time to split up, right? Plus sign, minus sign is a little different. So one root is negative 3 plus 9 over 18. The other root is negative 3 minus 9 over 18. So that will give us that 6 over 18, right? We can simplify to 1/3. The other one is negative 3 minus 9 is negative 12. Negative 12 over 18, we simplify as negative 2/3. So two solutions here. One equals positive 1/3. The other one is negative 2/3. So you can look through this process I just did, okay?